Good evening and warm welcome to State of Business on Nart Television. I'm Chamal Fernando. Let's have a look at the headlines. President allocates effort to improve the state of Sri Lankan cricket. Foreign debt restructuring need to be more transparent, Harsha De Silva says. Now the news in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the government will be able to introduce assets worth between 500 billion rupees and 1 trillion rupees to the national economy through the recent budget proposal. The president said this speaking to the heads of media from across the country at the presidential secretariat yesterday.
මේ අයවැයෙන් ලංකාවේ විශාලම පුද්ගලිකකරණය අපි කරා. ඒ තමයි ඉඩම් සංවර්ධන පනත යටතේ ඉඩම් ගත්ත සාමාන්‍ය ගොවීන්ටත් ජනතාවටත් මේ ඉඩම් ටික සම්පූර්ණ සින්නක්කර අයිතිය දෙනවා. ඒ වගේම විශේෂයෙන්ම රජයේ තට්ටු නිවාසවල ඉන්න අයටත් අපි ඒ අයිතිය දෙනවා. දැන් සංඛ්‍යාව 50000ක් කියලා කියනවා තට්ටු නිවාස තියෙන්නේ ඉඩම් තියෙන මට පේන හැටියට ඇත්ත වශයෙන් මේ කරනකොට මීට වඩා ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න යනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ආර්ථිකයට අපි රුපියල් බිලියන 500යි ට්‍රිලියනයක් අතර වත්කම් ඇතුල් කරලා තියෙනවා. We are bringing in assets worth somewhere between, no one knows, between 500 billion minimum I would say, but more towards 1 trillion. We have introduced it into the country's economy in one go. අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ගුවන් සේවාව අලෙවි කරත් මෙච්චර මුදල් එන්නේ. මේ ඔක්කොම සේවාවන් එකතු කරත් මේක එන්නේ. එහෙනම් මේ නිෂ්පාදනය දැන් වැඩි කරන්න පුළුවන්. එක විශාල පියවරක් හැටියට අපි ගත්තා. මේක තමයි ලංකාවේ තියෙන විශාලම පුද්ගලිකකරණය. ඒක අතකින් කියනවා. අනික් අත මේ අයිතිය මේ රටේ පළවෙනි වතාවට පිළි අරගෙන තියෙනවා. මේ රටට විශේෂයෙන්ම අපි කිසි විටක රාජ්‍ය ඉඩම් පනත අතර සාමාන්‍ය ජනතාවට ඉඩම් අයිතිය දුන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් ඒ සියල්ලම දීලා තියෙනවා. අපි මහවැලිය කරේ ඉඩම් ජනතාවට දෙන්න. ඒත් කිසි විටක C කලාපේ හරි H කලාපේ හරි ඒක තිබුණ එකක්වත් ජනතාවට දුන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් මේ සියල්ලම ජනතා අයිතියට හිමි කරලා තියෙනවා.
Speaking to journalists, President Wickremesinghe said that the government will pledge its case with the International Cricket Council in order to reinstate Sri Lanka's membership. He also said that the government will allocate revenue to increase the talent acquisition by providing the infrastructure and necessary facilities for cricketers in Sri Lanka until the year 2030.
CC එක කතා කරන එක කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලේ බාර දුන්නා. ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම කොමිටියට අලි සබ්රි මහත්මයා ඇතුළු තියෙන කොමිටියට. ඒ අය කතා කරේ මං හිතන්නේ ඇමතුමත් හම්බුණා ක්‍රිකට් මණ්ඩලයත් ඊ හම්බෙලා තිබුණා. මේ එක කතා කළා මං කිව්වේ කොහොම හරි අපිට මේ නැති කරපු මැච් ටික ක්‍රීඩා ටික අපිට ලබා ගන්න උවමනයි කියලා. ඒකට අපේ සංචාරක ඇමතුමත් ඉල්ලීමක් කළා තිබුණා. මම මේක බලන්නේ මේ 1 බිලියන 1.5 දුන්නේ ක්‍රිකට් ක්‍රීඩාව දියුණු කරන්නට නම් දැන් තියෙන සංඛ්‍යාව වැඩි කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ එන්නේ පාසල් වලින්. You have to increase the pool. ඒක කරන්නේ වැඩියෙන් ක්‍රිකට් වලට යොදන්න. සමහර ගම්බද පාසල් වල බෝල නැහැ, බැට් නැහැ. මීට වඩා පිච් එකක් නැහැ. ඒවා හදන්න තියෙනවා. පළාත් වලත් සමහර දැන් බස්නාහිර පළාතේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. උතුරු මැද බලන්න. ඌව බලන්න. අන්න එහෙම පළාත් වල නැගෙනහිරේම අපි ක්‍රිකට් තව දියුණු කරන්න තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒව සඳහා තමයි මේ මුදල වෙන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ මේක දැන් ඉඳන් 20 30 වෙනකම් අපි මෙහෙම මුදල් දෙන්න ක්‍රිකට් ක්‍රීඩාවේ තත්ත්වය වැඩි කරන්නත් සහභාගී වෙන කණ්ඩායම් වැඩි කරන්නත්. ඒ වෙනකොට අපි දෙකෙන් එකක් අපි මේ පළවෙනි තැනට ආපහු එන්න ඕනේ නැත්නම් වැටෙන්න ඕනේ.
Speaking at the event, Treasury Secretary Mahinda Siriwardana said that the government aims to get maximum yield from the existing tax policy by proper implementation of tax administration and incorporating digital systems.
Broadly, what we think right now is that broader taxes and tax policy is in place right now. We have corporate tax, personal income tax, we have excise taxes and VAT. Broadly, there are 4 taxes. So the concentration from here onwards would be to basically get the maximum out of get the maximum yield out of this, tax policy which is in place through the improvement of the tax administration. If you see the past, but why we have not been able to get the desired revenue out of the tax policy is basically mainly due to the, tax administration issues. In fact, there are a lot of weaknesses in the tax administration. That's why we are trying to, improve the tax administration through the implementation of, digital sort of, methods. Revenue Administration Information System, RAMIS, is one of the key mechanisms that we are going to use that. In fact, there are a lot of issues. In fact, we tried to come up with RAMIS maybe, somewhere in 2013, but since 2013, we are still struggling. Phase 2 of the RAMIS is now almost in place, and that would provide some digitalization support, and also to, get many people into the tax nets. One of the key, complaint that is being made by people out there is that only a segment of the people are paying the taxes, but others are not paying the taxes. They are due taxes. So what we are trying to basically, improve the tax net and improve the compliance and get many people into the tax net, so that whatever the tax burden that are being, shared by this segment would get some, relief going forward.
Stay tuned. We will return after this commercial break. Welcome back. Opposition MP Harshad De Silva urged the government to be transparent on the matter of international debt restructuring process. He said that if anybody should benefit from Sri Lanka overperforming on the GDP projections, it should be the working class people who had to sacrifice their EPF funds and not ISB holders. The member of Samagi Janam Balaveka said this speaking at the appropriation bill debate in Parliament today.
දැවන්ත විදේශ ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යය ගත කිරීම ගැන එච්චර කතා කරේ නැහැ. මොකද වෙන්නේ? We have not been updated on the restructuring talks between Sri Lanka and China, other than to say there is an agreement between Exim Bank of China. We are aware that Lazards is unable to share the details of this agreement without consent of the Chinese government. Has such consent been obtained? Has the Paris Club, mainly Japan and India, agreed to the Exim Bank deal? What about the ISB holders? Their ad hoc group has made a proposal to the government of Sri Lanka on adding on a debt instrument called a macro-link bond, MLB, to the proposed exchange bond series, replacing the existing defaulted bonds. That is to give them further benefit if Sri Lanka overperforms on his GDP growth projections. Let it be known that let it be known, I am repeating this, let it be known, if anyone needs to be overcompensated, that group must be those who took the biggest beating in this whole restructuring exercise, and that those are the workers whose EPF was the hardest hit. So we urge the authorities not to bind any future administration to an unfair deal with the ISB holders. The days of this government are numbered. It's numbered. So please be transparent in any deal you enter so that we are all on the same page.
Country Director of the International Labour Organization, Simran Singh, said the organization has recommended that employment creation, upgrading skills of labour and institutional reforms as the key to sustain the economy of Sri Lanka. The country director said this while speaking at a public awareness press conference on the recent ILO report on small and medium-scale businesses of Sri Lanka recently.
As mentioned, the recommendations could be clustered around three core areas, one being employment creation, generation, revival, the other being on skilling, so investing in the people so that they have the skills to match the supply and the demand dynamics of the labor market. And the third is the kind of regulatory and institutional reforms that are required to make this actually happen. The President is expecting a labor market recovery and transformation strategy to be presented to him. And for that purpose, we have been working with a very cross-section of world of work actors, counterparts, from the private sector employers, from the unions, the government, and multiple government entities. to formulate the strategy side by side with the survey findings. And that strategy is to be presented for action to the president before the end of this year, so in the coming weeks. We know when it comes to labor markets and economies, it's constantly evolving. So this is something that will be a living strategy informed by how events unfold in the country.
Speaking at the event, the co-author of the report, Dr. Ramani Gunatilaka, said that due to the rapid migration and the lack of economic opportunity in the country, a majority is opting to migrate, thereby losing valuable labor force. She said that Sri Lanka only has a small window of time to mitigate this problem. Therefore, swift action must be taken.
Another problem that firms faced was with the rise in prices. The thing is, you need to remember that first there was a shortage of petrol and electricity and all that. After that, there was a rise in prices because the stabilization measures had to adjust these prices. So even though there was fuel, it was far more expensive. So a lot of firms had to adjust to these new realities, and they couldn't really pay workers as much as workers needed to get now, because their cost of living also had risen.
Stay tuned for the stock update. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on negative notes today. The all-share price index dropped 51.78 points to close at 10,723.65, and the S&P as 20 dropped 5.97 points to close at 3,034.59. The turnover was 0.7 billion rupees and over 19 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. That's all our news for today. For this and more, subscribe our channel on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook.